Welcome to Cyber Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today, we are talking about Captain America, the First Avenger, which was released in 2011, starring Chris Evans, Tommy Lee Jones, Hugo Weaving, Haley Atwell, Sebastian Stan, Toby Jones, and Caesar Flickerman, Stanley Tucci. In addition to me, we got Bob here. We also have Matthew and Heather. So what I was going to say, this is my favorite, other than the Avengers, this is my favorite of the Phase 1 movies. And part of that is because of how much I like Captain America himself. He's my favorite Marvel hero. But I watched it again in preparation for the show, and I still love this movie.
I could say right off the bat, Captain America, the First Avenger. I think it's great that they stayed true to the Captain America character. It is set in World War II. We talked about it before with some of these other movies and these first few movies in the Phase 1, this early MCU. And I think that, how many times have we watched movies, especially now, where it's like, oh, why didn't they stay true to the comic book, and why did they have to change this, and why do we have to change that? So I think that it was really awesome that Marvel stayed true to this one, because easily they could have set it in today, not unlike with Iron Man, and we talked about that when we talked about Iron Man, is they could have set it in like a war for today, but they decided to really capture Captain America and everything else, and stay with the World War II thing. So I thought that was really really awesome. So
yeah, I also don't know that it would work any other way. I mean, naming him Captain America today would be weird, but in World War II,
especially
that
today
era, it was yeah. But during World War II, it was very big because of the war. If we were at war today, if there was a big war going on, I would maybe see them naming a character Captain America. But right now, we're not at war.
No. We move forward to Captain Planet at some point. So.
Yeah, well, Captain Planet is already
We're all one people.
Captain Planet, he's a
hero.
Heather, what was your impression of Captain America when it first came out?
Well, I really like this. For me, because I'm not a comic fan, because that's not, my origins, I like this movie more because it was less of the superlative superhero. He was the normal guy that became a hero, and all of the good features that they point out in Steve Rogers, just makes it a feel good movie for me.
Right?
The loyalty, the honesty, all of those good attributes that they bring out in that character. He's not self-centered. He's not, I'm going to save the world all by myself kind of attitude. He's humble, and I think that was just refreshing in a superhero movie.
Yeah,
and I like that it was set in the past as well, that. Again, it set it apart from the other Marvel movies.
This was the movie that I think I was the most excited for, aside from Avengers 1 and Iron Man. I mean, obviously that one's my favorite out of Phase 1, Iron Man 1, but Captain America, I remember watching the trailer for the first time. It was like a Sunday football game, and I about jumped through the roof getting to see the trailer for the first time. So I was very, very excited. I think it was mostly because, Dad, you showed me that old 90s version. While that one was cheesy, I still thought his origin story was very cool. Frozen in ice, brought back into the modern world. And I was happy to see that they did that again, that origin. I thought Chris Evans was a good choice. I liked him as Human Torch back in the Fantastic Four movies. Loved both of those when he was in them. And I thought he was a great choice. And yeah, rewatching this, I kind of forgot how good this one was and why I was so excited for it. I think a lot of people downplay this one now as simple. I think it's just really great. And I don't think they could have found a better director than, I can't remember his name, but he directed The Rocketeer.
Joe Johnston.
Jojo, yeah.
Not Jojo, but Joe Johnston.
Joe Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
And he did The Rocketeer, which was also set.
Yeah.
Similar time period. And it had that feel, rewatching it. I don't know. I like The Rocketeer. Full of hope. Just a different type of MCU movie. Something we don't get anymore, less formulaic. I mean, it was an origin story, but it's, I don't know. I like this movie a lot.
I find it, this was a question I was going to pose and it was not on my list of questions/agenda. What do you guys think about the placement of this movie? So again, if I go back to the previous conversation, we had Iron Man just kick this thing off and it was set modern day. And then we had Thor, we had Incredible Hulk, again, all modern day. And then we had Iron Man 2, and then suddenly now we have Captain America, which takes us back. And Captain America, the first Avenger, yet it's the fourth, fifth movie? 1, 2, 3.
Right, but he was the first one to
But he was the first one. How do you
Historically.
what do you guys think about where they place this movie, where its release compared to the other ones? Like, where does the movie kind of sit for you? And I think it's interesting. I meant to go back and kind of look up, why did they do this? Why didn't they do this one first to kick the whole thing off?
I actually really, I was going to talk about this anyway, but the fact that they bookended the movie at the beginning and the end with modern day is, I think, vital to this point, because it shows that they thawed him out of the ice after Iron Man existed. And I think that if he had come out of the ice before that, things might have changed. The whole world might have been changed very drastically, but there were no heroes that anyone knew about. I mean, Captain Marvel obviously existed too, but no one knew about her except for Nick Fury. Now Thor has already been to Earth, and Iron Man is already around, and then they found Captain America. And then the rest of the movie, most of the movie is actually a flashback. One of the things I wanted to say about this, because we've talked about it in some of the other movies, this is the way to do in media res, where the story, well, it's not really in media res, but it's a different storytelling device where they bookend the movie with current day thing and then tell the whole thing in flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was done very effectively here because it places his thawing out and entering the modern day after Iron Man already exists, after Shield is controlling everything else, and that gives Nick Fury he has first dibs in waking him up.
Right.
I think some of it, because it came after Iron Man 2, where we got to see that little glimpse back at Howard Stark, I think it tied in really well to touch back to the past again and the Howard Stark moment. And I also think that, like you said, the book ending kept it within the same, overarching storyline. But I think if they had tried to do this one first, for example, just to be in a timeline order, it wouldn't have been flashy enough, I think, to get the popular attention that the Marvel Cinematic Universe ultimately grew into. I think the flashier stuff was needed to get everybody's attention. And then telling this origin story as a whole movie fit better at this point.
So, we've had now Iron Man, we have Thor, we have Captain America. I know we had the Hulk too, but it was part of the timeline, yet not part of the timeline. So, but Captain America compared to Iron Man and compared to Thor, now we've got these three major characters. How did you guys, see Iron Man, Thor, Captain America? How did that all play into it? What are we feeling like? And I feel like that comes into the director. I'm kind of merging a little bit here with some of the things. It's like, we talked about the direction of the movie. So one of the things I want to touch on is those three main characters. But I find it interesting, and I didn't really think about it until now, is, we had Jon Favreau, who brought his particular style to the Iron Man. Then we've got Kenneth Branagh, who's Shakespearean trained stage guy, everything else, does a movie like Thor. And then we got Joe Johnston, who, again, the Rocketeer, he's got that grasp of that time period and that type of thing. Speak a little bit about the characters and how they were, how these three kind of came, Captain America compared to them, as well as the directors.
I think the source material for the comic books, not that I'm a super big comic book junkie, you had a good foundation to build up from. You can cherry pick all you want from those comics and the origin stories. So I think that if the directors had been different for any of those movies, it would have been not necessarily a different character portrayal, but just a different feel. Not only was Joe Johnston director Rocketeer, another World War II-esque movie or adjacent movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark. He worked on the special effects on that one. You could definitely see some of that come through in this movie, especially in the opening scene when he's dropping through the Hydra jet and he's like roping down. I don't know. It looked like Indiana Jones dropping down to me. I feel like if you had changed any of the directors for these films, you would have gotten a different movie, obviously. Maybe a different character portrayal, but I think it was perfect the way each one of them was portrayed. And I feel like Captain America coming in at the end, you started off with Iron Man, futuristic, and then Captain America being the bookend character right before Avengers, hyped it up really, really well. Captain America is the leader of the team too. So
Yeah.
that was a smart decision, saving him for last. Not necessarily that he's the best character, but having the leader come in right before the team up movie, I thought that was a smart decision.
And it set everything up really well. And I
Right.
mean, you can even tell because where every other movie had a post-credit scene, that was, something about that movie and a hint of what's to come. This movie just gave you a full-on trailer for Avengers, which basically was saying, like, we have all the pieces set up now.
Right.
Right.
Because we didn't even mention them, but we have all the pieces now. We have Iron Man, we have Hulk, we have Thor, we have Captain America, we also have Black Widow, and we have Hawkeye. So all the pieces on the board now, ready for the Avengers movie.
I would say, to Heather's point, it was smart flashing back to Howard Stark when he's young. Different type of portrayal after Iron Man 2 with Dominic Cooper, who was also an excellent choice. I thought he was a great younger Howard Stark.
And you get to see how similar, the apple did not fall far from
Right,
that
right.
movie.
Well, and I think that Captain America too, it's you got Shield starting off. I think they took the opportunity to kind of expand to show kind of the scope of Shield and how long they'd been fighting the good fight, for lack of a better term.
We didn't know that they would become Shield. I mean, in Captain America's second movie is when we find out that Tommy Lee Jones' character and Peggy Carter, they were two, and also Howard Stark, they were the three founding members of Shield, but we didn't know that yet.
We've talked about with every movie kind of the character arc. We talked about it with Tony Stark and how he went from the arrogant thing and then kind of humbled himself a little bit, although still a little bit arrogant. We talked about with Thor. So let's talk about Steve Rogers, kind of his arc before, we like Steve Rogers, a skinny guy before the serum. He's just this skinny guy with a big heart. Speak a little bit about his kind of origin setup.
One thing that I definitely noticed, and I've said this before, it's not just Captain America, who's my favorite comic book hero, but on the DC side, my favorite superhero is Superman. And there's more than a couple of similarities because Clark Kent is kind of Steve Rogers before the serum. Obviously he's never scrawny or smaller than everyone else, but people have said Clark Kent is how Superman sees us. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it's definitely, he plays him as an everyman. And that's exactly what Steve Rogers is. He's an everyman. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, but he wants to be, and I identify with that because I was very scrawny. And look at me now. I'm still very scrawny. So I know exactly what it's like to be, the small Steve. I thought Chris Evans did a great job in both versions of Steve Rogers. He was phenomenal as scrawny Steve, getting beaten up by everyone, but refusing to back down. Because as he put it, if you run away once, then, you'll spend your whole life running away. Once you start running, it's hard to stop.
Yeah. Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it an arc because he's the same guy throughout the entire movie. Yeah, he goes skinny to big, and he maybe has a little more bravado and a little more confidence by the end. I don't know that I would call it an arc. He's just Steve Rogers, and he's the epitome of goodness in a dark world, at least in this world.
Sorry.
I will say there's a little bit of an arc there. So I disagree with you there. the arc is more about his developing confidence in himself and
Right.
believing in himself. So unlike the other superhero arcs where they had to be humbled in some way, it's almost the opposite. Like he needed to build that confidence. And for him, it was a physical transformation as well as the mental transformation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'd call the confidence a little bit of an arc. I just don't see his character changing that much in compared to Iron Man or compared to Thor, right? Like it's more subtle because he's good all
Right.
the way through the movies.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah. Although that is part of the point, like as Dr. Erskine put it,
right.
it enhances the qualities about you. So good becomes better and bad becomes worse.
Right. And I liked I love the special effects. I mean, they still hold up really, really well. How they superimposed his head and his face onto the smaller actor's body throughout the entire film. Because some of the CGI is pretty bad in this movie, but that I still think holds up really, really well. 15 years later now, we're in 2026. So, but I mean, because you would expect that physical transformation to be a little bit jarring, considering he didn't go from small to big in real life. I still think it looked really good as well. So I like this story. I don't think the arc is as noticeable.
It's not as dramatic.
Yeah.
It's not as dramatic of a change.
Yeah. One thing I wrote down when I was writing my notes, I said that Chris Evans played it well because he had this humbleness and modesty and a tiny bit of recklessness when he was small Steve. And then he keeps the same humbleness and modesty coupled with a bit of fear of his newfound abilities and power when he becomes Captain America. And over the course of the movie, he does learn to control himself. Even in the very first scene with him, after he gets the serum, he goes crashing through a window because he can't control his running. And by the end of the movie, he's able.
There was like a line that Dr. Erskine said, like the weak man respects strength or appreciates strength or something like that. Yeah.
A man who was strong all his life will forget, will lose respect for that power. But a man who was weak and gains that strength has respect for it.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Knows how useful it can be.
Yeah, I was thinking that, listening to you guys talk about it now, that I think really what it is, we've established that Steve's always had an inner strength, and it's more like his body finally caught up after the serum. And now he can, but at the same time, like Heather said, he still remained humble and everything else. It's not like he suddenly got a big head. It's just his body caught up, for lack of a better term, with, how his heart was, Dr. Erskine pointing at his heart.
Yeah.
Because he has a big heart and now he can accomplish those things and stand up for himself and stand up for other people in a more significant way. And it's good because he doesn't lose that. Again, very easily could have been like, oh, I'm like the bomb now, and he can go off and do all these other things. Because after he takes the super soldier serum and becomes Captain America, he suddenly, the next part of that is he becomes a symbol. He wants to go fight, and they end up, shoving him into a
propaganda.
Propaganda role.
Selling war bonds.
Yeah, selling war bonds. And I thought that was kind of interesting, that they went that route, because it could have, the director could have easily just been like, okay, now we're going to move him straight into the war. And, that little chunk of movie there where he's selling the war bonds and that type of thing, I thought was interesting. Because we all knew he was already chomping at the bit. I mean, what do you guys think about that little section there where he's selling war bonds? How did that? Because I was thinking about it, and I'm like, there's some character development there, but I just thought it was interesting that they took the time to do that part of it. In terms of adding it to his I mean, I guess we're not really calling it an arc, which I kind of agree with that, because he's kind of the same at the beginning, all the way to the end is. But, in terms of his development, character development, that little section, it's almost like a pause before we actually get to the meat, which is when he finally goes overseas. What do you think of that, about that little part? And then as he moves into the USO tour and that type of thing.
I would say to me that was still some of the lack of faith in himself. He's still waiting to be told what to do at that point. And he's willing to do whatever he's told to do, even if it seems on the ridiculous side to him, even with his newfound strength. Like, this is what he's asked to do. He wants to do his part, no matter what that looks like, until it became, the issue where it was like saving his friend. Like, no, this is definitely more important. And I'm going to, trust in myself to make that decision and defy the orders at this point. So to me, it was watching that transformation still of kind of having authority over himself versus, just wanting to do whatever anybody tells him to do.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. Is he's always been,
he wanted to be the good soldier.
The good soldier, the team player. I can follow orders. Yeah, that's a good point, because it does lead up to the point where he's just like, I'm going to go do this, when he finally gets to Europe and he wants to go save the guys. And Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was done really well, because obviously in the comics, after he was given the serum, he just was trained immediately with the best boxers and the best fighters available, training him to be a super soldier. And his first assignment was to take down Red Skull. I think that the movie does a really good job of giving us a good reason why he would wear that flashy spandex suit. And, in some ways, even though it's a bit different than the original comic book, it's still, it makes good sense, and it does tell a good story of, he's constantly used. I mean, it's also, when you think about it, a little bit of kind of foreshadowing how he sees himself and his role in the world, because he doesn't want to be dancing to the tune of people who are in more power than him, telling him what to do. And he starts showing that immediately in this movie, when he finds out that his friend Bucky is one of the people that's missing and captured, and he goes against orders. His orders are to continue doing this show and continue selling war bonds, and he feels like a dancing monkey. So he takes it upon himself to go across enemy lines and rescue the troops, that squadron. And this would play out again over and over again in his series, in Captain America, The Winter Soldier, where he refuses to go along with the beat of SHIELD, even before he knew that SHIELD was actually being operated by Hydra.
Right.
He goes against his orders and becomes a fugitive because he refuses to give up, the good.
It's when he starts trusting that he wants to do the right thing, and I can actually identify with the right thing, versus having to be told what the right thing is.
In Civil War, he tells Tony, we're skipping ahead quite a bit, but at one point in Captain America Civil War, he says he knows that they're not perfect, but he still says safest hands are our own.
Right.
And I think a perfect encapsulation of who Captain America is comes in this movie. Dr. Erskine says he's not a perfect soldier, but a good man.
Yeah.
Stanley Tucci was a great choice as Dr.
Yeah. I still like, every time I look at him, I still see Caesar Flickerman. But
Sure.
That's probably because that's where I knew him first, I think, or at least that's his most flashy appearance.
I just always see him as the dad from Easy A, but that's just me. No, I like the propaganda scene. I think it set up the historical era even more so because you know, all the scenes beforehand, you know, yeah, you see Red Skull tromping around Europe and destroying it, and um, you see Steve running through Brooklyn, and it's all set in the 1940s, super CGI, not great. But the whole World War II bond selling, I mean, that was, I mean, I thought it was a good callback to how the country came together back in the 1940s to put their best foot forward to fight in World War II in all aspects. Granted, in this movie, it's focused around a central figure that's a propaganda machine, but at the same time, that actually happened. People were selling war bonds and buying war bonds and trying to, you know, make donations and make sure that the army and all the men fighting overseas were well equipped. So, and I like the whole visual twist that they throw in there. Like when he's in America, it's super bright and colorful, and then the second he appears over in Europe, it's very dismal, and it's not even. It's not even a subtle shift. It's like you go super bright, and then the literal next frame is him in this rainy, I don't even know what country they're in. I would assume it's France or Germany. And the soldiers that are actually fighting the war mock him.
I agree. I think it was a very great depiction of the reality of
Right.
war, like
Mhm.
how oblivious it can seem, you know, when you're distanced from it.
Yep.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
America,
I like that transition scene there.
It's reverse
Yeah,
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
because that's traditionally that's how war is, because we haven't had much in the way of war coming here in America. But where war is, it is dirty and gray and
Yeah.
muddy and kind of gross. And when you're far away from the front lines, things are fine. Life goes on as usual. No one really has to think about it.
Yeah.
I also want to give a quick shout out to the people who wrote, or whoever wrote the song, uh, um, "The Man with the Plan," or whatever it's called.
Star Spangled Man with a Plan.
The Star Spangled Man with a Plan. Perfect. You know, it sounds like it was written in the 40s.
Mhm.
Like they have the same style. It's not that it's that difficult to write a song.
Did it
based on
make
the
you want to
40s,
buy a
but
war bond, Josh?
I went out and bought war bonds.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they were fake ones because no, no, it made me it made me want to go out and buy Captain America comic books.
Yeah, I liked how they showed like the soldiers and the kids with the Captain America comic book, like as this propaganda was, you know, machine was like trying to capitalize on that. And, you know, like I thought that was a nice little touch, like kids with actual comic books in their hands, you know,
Mhm.
like this isn't a comic book movie to begin with, but
Alan Menken from
Oh,
Disney.
that explains it.
And David
yeah.
Ah.
David Zippel, but Alan Menken co-wrote it with him. So homage
it was
to the wartime songs of Irving Berlin, capturing the USO style of the era.
right. USO patriotic. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was definitely in that vein.
We love
Yeah, they
Alan
even
Menken.
show what's his name, Hodge. He was the
Oh, yeah.
bully.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was reading Captain America comics.
Yeah.
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 And ironically, just wanted to say, Hodge was played by a guy named Fletch Shrapnel.
Wow.
Shrapnel. Okay.
Yeah, the guy who ran away from the grenade.
Got
What
it.
What a good
I'm
scene
sorry,
that was.
stupid.
Yeah,
It was a
Yeah,
great
that-
scene. It's just
that was
a
a
really
great
stupid
scene,
pun.
yeah.
But his last name is
Yes.
Shrapnel.
Yeah, the grenade scene, I think specifically, and I did have that in there in my notes, is I think that was that. Speaking of that scene, is that I think that was what cemented Dr. Erskine's choice.
Absolutely.
yeah.
With
Yeah.
he was probably leaning that way anyway. But
Like,
the
and
fact
he
that
no
No,
longer
Dr.
had to-
Erskine.
He no longer had to defend him to Phillips. Like,
Yeah, Dr.
that was
Erskine
it.
had already
That was the
made
answer.
choice. That was the discussion he was having with
right.
with Phillips. He was saying he's the clear choice, and Dr. Phillips, Tommy Lee Jones did such a great job as Chester
What a
Phillips
scene
for being
stealer.
the comic for being comic relief. And the way he delivers his lines so dry is exactly what makes it so perfect. My single favorite line in that entire movie is Tommy Lee Jones looking at him going, "Look at him. He's making me cry."
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that. He's making me cry.
My favorite Tommy Lee Jones line in the movie is when he shoots the Hydra agent. He's like, "Well, let's go find two more."
Yes.
That was a great scene.
Yeah.
A lot of good one-liners from Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
Speaking of, let's move into some of the characters. So Red Skull, Hydra, villains. We'll start with that. Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull.
He's always a good bad guy.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm actually at the point now where I would like to see Hugo Weaving play a heroic guy.
Well,
The closest we've seen is Elrond,
yeah.
but he's not. Elrond isn't in it enough and doesn't do enough to really stand out as a hero. He's just kind of a good guy. But yeah, Hugo Weaving is almost always a bad guy, but he does it so well. It's almost like Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
I love Alan Rickman, but it's hard to say if he would do a great job as a good guy. He played villain so well that, he was such a nice. I mean, I met him once, and he was a really cool guy. But he played villain so well that
he does that dry and angry kind of presentation very well.
Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith in the Matrix series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Like
still
that.
remember watching. It was the second Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. One of the bonus features was to have cast commentary, and Dom Monahan and Billy Boyd, the two actors who played Merry and Pippin, were really funny in that commentary. And in the scene, it was Return of the King. And when Elrond showed up at the camp halfway through the movie to present the new sword,
Right.
to Aragorn, and he shows up in the hood, and they're like, "Who is this guy? Do you think it might be Arwen or someone else?" They're talking in their thick Scottish accents. And then he pulls back the hood and he's like, "Oh my God, no, it's the guy from the Matrix."
Yeah. Yeah, he was really good. And then, it's interesting, again, being in the mindset back then is like Hydra was just Hydra, and again, this is one of those, like we mentioned when we talked about the Incredible Hulk, the kind of far reaching. I mean, Hydra ends up playing obviously a huge role. In future, going forward. And then we've got what was the other doctor's name? The one they capture?
Zola.
Zola.
His name is Arnim Zola.
Yeah.
And he was perfectly cast. Toby Jones.
Yeah, Toby Jones.
Looks exactly like the character in the comics.
And he was also in the Hunger Games.
Yeah, he was also with Caesar Flickerman.
Yeah. Yeah. Toby Jones is a very good actor, but he was perfectly cast as Arnim Zola. He looks just like the character in the comics.
Yeah. So, again, as we talk about characters, let's talk about Peggy Carter, some of the other ones, the Howling Commandos. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's start with Peggy Carter, and just kind of roll.
I love Haley Atwell, and don't roll your eyes, Bob. I'm not talking about that. I mean, she's a really good actress. I've seen her in a couple of other things, but it's hard for me to see her as anyone other than Peggy Carter. I don't like saying that because I don't, no actor wants to be stereotyped. And I think she is a good enough actress that she can play a completely different character. But to me, when I see her, I still want to see more Peggy Carter because she played that role so well.
Well, she did get a show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Peggy Carter got a show. I wish that show had continued. Season 2 wasn't as good as season 1, but it was still good enough. I would have liked to see a third season.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoyed that show, and I liked the character. I also enjoyed seeing when she became Captain America in the What If universe, and she played the character again in in the second Doctor Strange movie.
Captain Carter.
Yeah, very short-lived role.
Well, yeah, Marvel's overplayed that hand. I don't know why Marvel. I like the character of Peggy Carter. They really try and force her in as many sections of the MCU that they can. In the What If universe, it was cool to see it in one episode. I think she's overstayed her welcome.
Well, she's gone now, so
right, but
the only thing I don't like about the fact that they killed her off so quickly, if they were going to make her a thing, is killing her quickly is almost like saying, yeah, she's a woman, she couldn't do it as well as a man.
well, not just that, she's in the What If. I think she leads What If season 2 through and through, unless I'm wrong.
I actually didn't like What If very much, so after watching the first several episodes of the first season, I gave up on it, and then I never saw season 2.
Yeah, I get what Marvel's trying to do, but I don't know. She feels shoehorned in. Like a couple of appearances would have been fine. I'd never watched the Agent Carter show, but I remember when Marvel was taking a stab with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter as their TV show entries.
Yeah, I loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's like one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
Didn't watch that either, unfortunately, but
I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. The show I think the biggest problem with that, I won't keep us on this because really it's not the focus of the show, but that show lost a lot of viewers at the beginning because it played off a lot like a police procedural, just like anything else. It's like watching CSI, and it barely had any connective tissue with the Avengers other than the occasional mention. So they lost a lot of viewers, and about 3/4 into the way of season 1, they had 2 episodes that take place concurrently with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And that's when the show does a complete turnaround and becomes amazing. And I thought it was amazing from that point on. So if you can make it through the first season, then it gets great.
I'll have to give it a watch.
Yeah.
I know
I thought
Coulson
that
comes
show-
back.
Yeah, Coulson is in it. And I don't want to give anything away, but the 2 episodes to look for are the beginning and the end, the beginning of the end, and turn. Those 2 are the ones that take place at the same time as the events of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So really, if you want, watch the show, and after watching the beginning of the end, then watch Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and then watch turn.
Okay, I'll have to make some time for that.
Jumping back into
So back to the movie.
Yeah, back to the movie.
Yeah.
So back to the characters. The Howling Commandos. I feel like that could have been. I don't know. I don't think. They were cool. Each one of them got a little bit of screen time, but then they were just gone.
Yeah.
We didn't get enough of that. Like, I saw that in your list of things to talk about, and I'm like, oh, is that supposed to be that group of soldiers that he got together as the Howling Commandos? Again, without the comic book context, I'm like, I got that they were his crew there, but I didn't even know they had a name.
Yeah, I didn't know they had a name.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the things that I took down as my notes. I enjoyed seeing the Howling Commandos, but they weren't even given individual names. Anyone who read a comic would see the guy with the big mustache and the big bowler hat and know immediately that was Dum Dum Dugan. But they never said his name.
They have names?
Yeah. They were a bigger role. They were a bigger role in the comic book.
They had their own comic book.
Yeah.
They definitely should have brought that in a little bit more. It didn't have to take over the movie or anything, but they could have given them at least a group name, if not the individual names.
Yeah, Neil McDonough, Neil McDonough, or I don't know how you say that. McDonough. He's the one who played Dum Dum Dugan, and he showed up in 1 or possibly 2 episodes of Agent Carter, just as kind of a side character. There was also another character from the Howling Commandos that showed up in that show, but he wasn't in the movie. He just showed up in Agent Carter. But the Howling Commandos were definitely a thing. And they do get a mention again in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, when they're in the museum. And you see an article in the background about the Howling Commandos.
Yeah, and they mentioned the Howling Commandos,
Oh,
Captain
yeah, I kinda
America and his
remember that, yeah.
Howling Commandos and that type of thing.
Yeah. But they didn't name them in this movie, and they definitely should have.
Yeah. And then I know we mentioned Howard Stark, bringing him in. Again, I mentioned it earlier, is I think that it's really, it's interesting because, again, Hydra in this movie at the time, we didn't know that Hydra was going to play such a big role. On the flip side, it's like they spent more time going, look, whether it was S.H.I.E.L.D. or not, it was like in development and they've been fighting the good fight long enough. And you got Howard Stark. I think that it's interesting how they, we talk about like expanding the universe in a movie, or expanding like, the world building and expanding. I think this movie did a good job of kind of showing the depth as to how the organization came around, the secret organization that eventually becomes S.H.I.E.L.D., and everybody who had a hand in it, and how it's, Tony Stark's dad started off. Now kind of Tony Stark is a part of it, and that type of thing. I thought it was interesting that they did that to expand upon it. Any other thoughts on? Yeah, that really didn't make any sense. I'll cut that part out. It's early. I haven't. Anyway, anything else on characters? Or anything else?
Let me see. I wrote down some notes.
I think it was a great cast through and through. I don't think there was anybody that was miscast.
Yeah, that's all the characters I wrote about.
I wish Dominic Cooper got another chance to play Howard Stark in a younger appearance, because I like.
He also showed up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm sorry, Agent Carter.
Okay. But in the movies, it would have been cool to see another flashback of him as younger Howard Stark. But no, I like Tommy Lee Jones. Like I said, every scene he's in, he steals it. And then when he's across from Stanley Tucci in the grenade scene, that's a great scene overall. I thought the supporting cast was good. And don't take my comments about Agent Carter being a bad character.
No.
Too much. I just think she's kind of like an Ahsoka Tano, where it's like, okay, she's a bit overstayed her welcome.
Well, don't say Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, you picked the wrong one to pick on your toes there.
I don't know. 7 seasons of Clone Wars, a full show, a couple of episodes of Mandalorian, a Clone Wars movie. I don't know.
She's a great character, though. She's so good. She's my second favorite character in all of Star Wars.
Tangent.
Okay, before we go down this road, I will say this is the scene in the movie with Tommy Lee Jones. We talk about him and kind of stealing every show. The part where he goes in to talk to Zola, and he takes the steak and he like spins the tray, and he's putting a little salt and a little pepper, and he's eating it, and like, I don't know why, but that it was just so natural and so well done. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just there's the little details of that. I just think that were, and it's like an ASMR type of scene. You hear him chewing and all this other stuff, and he's like enjoying it. And he's like, do you know how hard it is to get corn-fed beef out here and blah, 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 or grass-fed, in this part of the world? And he's like, I brought you dinner. And I'm like, dang, dude, I want to go get a steak right now.
Yeah, I think he pulls off the bravado thing like really well, which is that character, he is the big military, head honcho here, so but yeah, he pulls off that bravado so naturally. Yeah,
and he does it really well. And like I said, he delivers all of his lines in a very dry tone. Like he's not happy, because Chester Phillips is not supposed to be happy to be there, and it just makes the comedy that much better. He's the comic relief in this movie, even though he's not a character that you don't take seriously.
Right.
Tommy Lee Jones does it perfectly.
Coming back to what we talked about with the placement of this movie, I think it would have been odd to put this before Thor and then show the Tesseract. I feel like that was you start off with the movie and Red Skull is looking for the Tesseract and he finds it immediately. If you hadn't watched Thor, you would have been like, what is this blue cube? And why does he want it so bad? And why does it have these astral implications? And even by the end of Captain America 1, you're still like, what even is this thing? Because it opens up into space and it powers all his technology and disintegrates people instantly. And I know he's talking about the power of the gods. He doesn't say, aside from Odin, I don't think he says anybody else. I don't even know if he says Odin.
No.
But
Yeah, he does.
He does.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does at the beginning of the movie. Said it was like
Right, when he's in the
one of his
Norwegian church or
treasures.
something, yeah.
I know he talks about Yggdrasil and the World Tree because he sees that mineral and that's where it's staying. And then I like the little call out to the World Serpent there that's wrapped around the tree. But either way, if Thor hadn't come out first, that I feel like this would have been odd to make the movie about the Tesseract. There's still questions, and maybe I've forgotten on how does the Tesseract fall from Asgard to Earth in the 1940s, and how does Loki get it back? I mean, I don't.
We don't know that it did. We don't know how long it had been here. At some point, it was on Asgard, and at some point, it came down to Earth.
And they don't.
We don't. They never talked about that.
Did they ever answer how it goes from? Well, no, never mind. That's a stupid question. I'm remembering Avengers 1 and how that opens up because Loki takes it right back. So anyway.
Well, and now that you're talking about, I do remember when I first saw the movie, I did not remember one bit about the Tesseract in Thor. And I was that person going, what is that blue cube? and so I do think they could have, I don't know, a little more narrative around what the Tesseract is and where it came from. Might have been helpful to the less comic book educated.
Yeah, that was one thing that I wrote down about this movie is that they never made it completely clear what the Tesseract was, other than a power source. Which, to be fair, I think that's what everyone thought it was. Like in universe, they just thought it was a power source. They didn't know yet that it was a gateway. And they certainly didn't know that it was one of the Infinity Stones.
Right. I think
but one thing that was still a question to me that I never completely understood is why does the Tesseract at the end of the movie suddenly decide now is the time to suck up the next person who talks to me? I mean, the next person to hold me, because it's been handled throughout the movie. But when Red Skull picks it up, all of a sudden it transports him to wherever.
But he touched it directly. He touched it directly versus the device that they were holding it.
He was wearing a glove.
I know, but every other thing they were like holding it with or
it was in a box,
a device. I don't know. That was my momentary understanding of why it sucked him up at that point.
Yeah. Now, why did it send him to Vormir? We'll never know. I mean, I thought that was a weird narrative decision. Cool.
I mean, I thought that it was cool because we finally got to see what happened to him. Because up until that point, we cut this sort of anticlimactic ending for him, where he just got sucked up. I didn't know if he was dead. I figured he wasn't because there was no body. And in Hollywood, if there's no body, they're not dead.
He gets beamed up by Scotty somewhere. So
yeah. So it was nice to see that that's what happened to him. He's going to spend his eternity guarding over another Infinity Stone that he wants but can't have.
Right. But no, I thought it was a good plot device for the whole movie, and it tied it to Thor, and then it sets up Avengers 1 really well. So.
Yeah, in this movie, the Tesseract is kind of the other than the MacGuffin that the bad guys have been using behind the scenes, it doesn't play into the action a whole lot. But it is a good setup for the thing because it's going to be the big, it's going to be the thing that sets in motion the events of the Avengers, the next movie.
Right. So let's talk about the ending of the movie. Steve's piloting the plane, he makes that sacrifice.
Well, one
You know,
thing that I always remember, and every time I watch the movie, I'm reminded of it. I know it's silly, but if you've ever seen How It Should Have Ended,
yes.
the little animated series for Captain America, they show all those little planes, the little bomber planes, and Arnim Zola is talking to Red Skull, and he's like, "Why are all of the names written in English? Aren't we German?" And Red Skull's like, "Do not question my genius."
I do remember that.
I felt like with the ending and how he's like, I've got to ditch it in the water. And I was like, I don't, what?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like,
they didn't make
really?
it very clear, especially because he was flying from the Alps to America.
Right.
And I mean, I didn't major in geography. I
Yeah,
majored
you go over
in
the pole.
communication.
Yeah, you go over the poles.
Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
still, if it's not like the plane was crashing already, it was just more like it's set on autopilot, and I can't. I'm like, dude, you just don't even want to try and set it down at least.
Yeah, like just yeah, find a runway.
Something. I
Or
mean, an
don't
ice.
don't crash it into warmer waters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. It's like, I mean, I know it sets up the phone call with Peggy, and he's like, oh, I got to miss that dance, and and blah 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 blah. But yeah, I always thought that was kind of
It was a little sudden.
yeah, it was like, and I know he needs to get in the ice, and that's the thing. So he can wake up, and Rip Van Winkle it to today. But
Yeah.
I always thought it was like, why that? I like, why like you didn't have another, again, like you said, in How It Should Have Ended. It's like, I think they also did it where it's like, well, I could just, go over here. No. I'm gonna go into the
Right.
ground. And it's like, well, you
Like
could.
Yeah.
if the plane was disabled in some way and it just crash landed like that, like there's any other way you could have gotten to the point of him, buried in ice, other than I've got to take this down. It's like yeah, it was a little too tidy, I guess.
Yeah, and it was. I get that there was like, weapons on the plane, and it's like we don't want to let this get near because if I landed in a populated area, it could still potentially go off and it could hurt people. So it's kind of like I got to do it, but it's like grab a parachute and jump out, or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, he's Captain America.
Like,
he could have flown really low and just kind of jumped out and landed on an ice. And then been like, pick me up. Somebody come pick me up.
On his shield, and
Yeah,
Exactly.
they don't explain why he can't, turn the plane south and head towards the Atlantic Ocean.
or why
big.
he couldn't, just get out of that plane at the last minute, or
if he's
why
flying
it
at the
meant
North
him being
Pole,
buried for 70 years, like
if he's flying over the North Pole for some reason, then he's got lots and lots of space to let the plane go down. He could parachute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did like how. Oh, go ahead, Matthew. Sorry.
I would say, yeah, I feel like the ending is kind of where the movie falls apart. Just a little bit, not to where you can't watch it, but
I was gonna say it doesn't fall apart, but it is.
It's a little weak.
The suspension of disbelief becomes a little bit too.
But I meant like the fight with the Red Skull is over in 5 seconds. And then he gets zapped up in the air. It would have made more sense if the Tesseract had like catastrophically destroyed the plane. I mean, it even shows the schematic of the plane, and it's only like 4 propellers are broken. It doesn't even show the landing gear is broken. It's like you could have popped the wheels out and just landed on the ice. I don't know. I find issue with that. I do find,
and you're right. It would have been a very easy thing to show the Tesseract going crazy and blowing up everything in the plane before it like melted through the floor.
They don't even show what the weapons are other than those stupid little planes. And it's like, I assume those are nukes or Tesseract powered nukes, but it's
guided missiles.
Yeah, they basically, that's exactly. They were they were going to kamikaze it into each of the cities.
But there was no, I don't know, without piloting them, is like, are those armed? Like, they don't explain it very well. Narratively, I feel like it just is like, okay, well, we need to get them in the ice somehow. And this is where I find the largest issue with the film. But it doesn't make it unwatchable. It's just narratively, it's like, I don't know about that. So
I mean, as I said, Captain America is my favorite superhero, and this movie by nature became my favorite of the origin stories in the phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even I admit, like, that doesn't make the most sense. And it's clear that what they were doing was putting him in the ice. That was why the decisions were made, not because it made sense, but because they hadn't put him in the ice.
The scene with Peggy on the phone, though, still emotionally impactful.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of goosebumps watching it again because I haven't watched this movie in a long time, and I was like, "Oh, that's just so sad." But
Yeah.
because you want them to get together, you want them to go on the dance, and they never will. So, at least in this point in time with these
we
movies,
know that would. Yeah.
yeah. So, overall, the ending kind of flat.
Well, I did like though. I was going to say,
and you say the ending. You're saying that part of, and then they go back to where he,
Right. Just
they
the whole
flash back to the future again. So
the plot device of putting him in the ice does not make sense. I guess is my complaint.
Yeah.
My one complaint with the movie is that.
Yeah.
I do like though when he wakes up and they're trying to simulate that it's
Mhm.
still like I thought that was kind of cool. And he's listening to the game, and then he's like, "I was there."
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's like busting out and everything else. And then he, that whole scene of specifically running into Times Square, really, I think, it could have been easy to just show him running down the street. But I think that seeing all the digital billboards, I think that was a good choice to show how much things had really changed. And he's absorbing this like, wow, where am I?
Right in this panic moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And
the only thing, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The only thing I didn't like was how they specifically ended the movie, where he says, "I had a date," and it looks like he's going to say something else. The music is building to something else, and it's just like, boom, you're done.
I will speak on that, and I get what you're saying, but at the same time, to me, the movie ends like that with that's pure like this is the character we've seen all the way through, and how Steve Rogers is, and his commitment to his friends and everything else, and wanting to follow through on everything. And I think that actually that was a good way to end it, because it shows his who he is as a person, but also how much he you're left on that cliffhanger of like he never got that opportunity, he didn't get that dance, he didn't get that date, and then it's done. Which I think at the end of the movie, I think we moved directly into the Avengers trailer. There's not, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how it's
end credits?
Yeah.
Or is it after the end credits, or is it?
Yeah, after the end credits.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It goes into the end credits right after that, and then when the end credits are done, the post credit scene is the Avengers trailer teaser, more like a teaser than a trailer.
And what a teaser that was! Oh,
yeah.
I was watching it last night. I was like, man, I want to watch this movie.
Yeah.
I know. I remember, when we saw that, and then like it's like they show them all sitting at the table in there, and I was just like,
the first time that we actually saw the Avengers together. They didn't have any lines. Yeah. They didn't have any lines from everyone. All they had was the scene of Captain America, punching the punching bag and talking to Nick Fury, and then a series of shots of them, including one shot of them all at that table. And then one line by Tony Stark where he says, "You got a mean swing." Mm-hmm. They left out where he calls him Point Break, which was in the movie. He said, like, "No offense, Point Break, you got a mean swing." But they cut out the Point Break part because they saved that for the actual trailer.
Right.
This was just a teaser.
It was a good teaser.
It was a good, very good teaser, and I am looking forward to reviewing that movie.
Yes. Yeah. So, coming back, we talked about how we've all rewatched it and kind of the legacy of the movie. So Matthew already kind of touched on it. How this movie holds up today. Obviously, we all know Steve Rogers / Captain America's importance to the MCU. That question too. Another question to ask is, does rewatching it now, does it play better now than it did when it first came out, or is it still the same? I mean, we've talked about how it's kind of rekindled old feelings, because you kind of remember when you saw it in the theater, and then you're like, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then especially with the Avengers, the trailer at the end, kind of how do you kind of feel about the movie, kind of final thoughts, that type of thing. Josh, go ahead and start.
Well, I still feel the same way that I always did. It was such a good movie to me, and part of it is because I was looking forward to seeing Captain America because he's my favorite superhero. So seeing him live action, for me, it was the first time because I never saw the one in the 90s.
I have it on VHS, so you can borrow it.
I just, I was really happy to be there at the theater, and I still, every time I watch it, every time I do a rewatch of the MCU, I look forward to watching Captain America. Even though it's not my favorite Captain America movie, but it's my favorite of Phase One, not including the Avengers, which takes Phase One completely. There's like nothing I could say bad about this movie. I agree that the ending is a bit jarring, a bit abrupt, like why he goes into the ice, but I don't care because I want him in modern day because the Avengers.
Yep.
Like that's the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Avengers.
Yeah. I mean, when I first saw it, I don't know. I was an edgy teenager. I liked the darker superheroes at the time, and I felt like Captain America was too hopeful. Now, as fully grown man, I appreciate the character more on this rewatch. I still would probably put this at the third best of Phase One, behind Avengers, and then Iron Man being my favorite from Phase One. I do think this is better than the Hulk. I'm going to keep that trend going throughout this whole series. Is it better or worse than the Hulk? I do think this is significantly better than the first Hulk movie, or the only Hulk movie we have, but definitely also not my favorite Captain America movie. Much like Josh said, that will always go to the Winter Soldier. I don't know. Coming back to it, I really like this movie. I was excited when I saw it, maybe a little bit disappointed back in 2011. Rewatching it, I mean, I texted you, Dad. I was like, oh, wow, I forgot how good this movie is.
Yeah.
My daughter does not like this movie.
I could see why it turned some people away. No, overall, I do really like this movie in hindsight, compared to when I first saw it. Not that I didn't like it, but it's better now. I think it's aged well, so...
I think when I first saw it, I didn't have as much context about Marvel in general. And so it was like, oh, that was a nice movie. I really like it now, and I like how it fits into the Marvel story as a whole. I like the character. I like that difference between the arrogant character that needs to be humbled versus the humble character who's just has altruistic characteristics and just all around good guy. I kind of there's a feel goodness to this movie compared to a lot of the others, and and definitely leading into the Avengers. I think it was a very good lead into bringing them all together.
Bob, you didn't actually say your thoughts. I don't think.
I don't have thoughts. No, I'm kidding. No, I thought Captain America, I was surprised at how good it was. I mean, I knew it was World War II, and I was already excited about that. I mean, like we talked about, I thought the movie was great. I still think it holds up. I still think the story it tells is really good. It's uplifting. Other than the few things we kind of talked about, like with the final ending and why did he have to crash the plane and everything else. It's I think that it's a character that that everybody can get behind and brings hope. And I was thinking earlier when we were talking about it and how in the Avengers, and he's like, aren't the Stars and Stripes a little old? And he's like, with everything that's coming out, a little old fashioned. Yeah. And he's like, with everything that's coming to light, people could use a little bit of old fashioned. I think that even though that line came in the Avengers, the next movie, that's the feeling that I get. A movie like Captain America, I think it's a good reminder, and I think we need more movies like that, not just in the MCU, but just kind of in general, where it's like, this type of thing matters.
I do want to talk about my favorite scene in Captain America, just as a final thought, is aside from the ending when he's on the phone with Peggy, when he's in the bar with Peggy and Bucky has just died, quote unquote. We didn't know if he's going to live or die. But we assume he's dead. And when she comes in and it's just a destroyed bar, I just really enjoy that scene. I thought it was a nice change of pace broke up the action scenes, and it was an intimate moment between him and Peggy, and he is being emotional and down to earth, not the super confident Captain America that everybody else sees. So that's probably my favorite scene in that movie.
A little bit still
Dispirited,
not
he
like
can't
it's
get drunk.
still Steve Rogers underneath all that. It's still Steve Rogers.
Yeah, and he's only human.
And I've always liked that scene. I don't know. That scene just always sticks out to me, and how she comes in to comfort him and just talk to him as a friend and not just the love interest. So,
all right. So looks like that's all we have to say about Captain America. I love this movie, but I am really looking forward to next week when we will talk about my favorite of Phase 1. I think it's most people's favorite, although I can't speak for everyone. Next week, we are talking about the Avengers. And definitely, I hope that you'll all tune in for that. If you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Our word is starting to get out about this show because we have more viewers than we ever have had before, though it's still a minuscule number by YouTube standards. We're trying to grow. So please, if you like this show, please tell everyone you know. If you didn't like this show, now is the time for quiet introspection. So once again, thank you for listening. And as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.